Good morning, everybody. This is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, and where I get the amazing opportunity to interview some amazing guests who are going to drop some education, inspiration, and motivation this morning. And listen, if you know me pretty well, I'm not really a morning person. So when I get up early to do a podcast, you know it's for a special person. So we had a great conversation just a week or so ago, and I am so excited to introduce Mr. Jared Miller, who has been who has passionately been singing, writing songs, and leading worship for over 27 years. Born in Houston, Texas, Jared has been involved in music all of his life, singing at conferences since the age of 8. He has played with the likes of Jars of Clay, DC Talk, Skillet, Ricardo Sanchez, and Micah Tyler. Jared is also very passionate about leadership and personal development. He is a certified speaker, trainer, and coach by Maxwell Leadership and the Sam Chan Leadership Institute. Jared speaks and teaches at churches, conferences, workshops, and seminars all over the world, from America to Egypt to Nigeria to Panama. As an author, Jared has written 2 books, including his bestseller, Truth, The Lies We've Been Told. Jared has a passion to pour his life into like-minded servant leaders who are ready to connect and collaborate in their creative calling and mission in life. Jared, welcome to the Master Motivation Podcast.
Thanks, Jason. Happy to be here. Excited for what's about to happen. Gonna help some people today, I believe.
I know you will, and I'm so excited. And we got our good friend and CLA leader, Jose Escobar, is watching. So happy to have you here, sir. And if you got any questions, you want to throw a little comment in there for Jared, please let us know. And I'm excited to have you. So once again, Jared, I just want to get started right away. First question is, what is your motivation getting up each and every day? What gets you pumped up for your day?
Well, I say first off is my boys. I have 2 boys, Grayson and Owen. They're 7 and 11 years old, and man, 2 of God's greatest blessings for me and my part of my legacy. And that's such a huge motivation. But also when it comes to a calling, when it comes to what I feel like is an assignment in my life, is when I get up, I want to create and I want to inspire. I want to create and I want to inspire. Especially for men, we have to produce, right? Not that women don't produce, but men have to produce. If we don't produce, man, we feel like losers and we feel lost. Something inside of us that has to produce something. So as a singer-songwriter, I create, and there's nothing quite like seeing something at the beginning of a concept and seeing it to fruition and giving birth to the final product and see the process and see it develop. So if it's a book or if it's a song or if it's an idea, if it's a speech or if it's conversation, just creating and inspiring people. Because I believe that, Jason, every single person breathing on the planet, we just want to be inspired. We need it. We desire it. We want it. Inspiration gives us hope. There's a connection with it, and it helps takes us from where we are to where we should be. So I love to create and I love to inspire.
Well, I love your energy already and how passionate and excited you are to talk about all of this. When I asked you the question about what gets you excited, what gets you pumped up in the morning, the first thing you said was, your 2 boys. And as a father of 2 myself, I can't agree with you more in that, our kids inspire us and motivate us in such a way. And it kind of ties in with what you just mentioned about, men having to perform. And yes, women have to produce and perform as well, of course, but we have this pressure as men in our society to be the provider, to be, the one that has the answers, the one that's there to solve the problems. And, I know that my children look up to their mother, my wife, so much, right? In so many different ways, but they look at me. One of the things I remember about my dad, the thing that first and foremost, he was caring and loving, but he was a hard worker, man. His work ethic was insane. And that's what I learned from my father. And I think that that's what I lent to my children, right? And so tell me a little bit more about being a father and how much of a, everyday role that plays in your life and how being a father makes you a better servant leader.
Yeah, well, so I've heard a couple of things. I heard someone say, I never really fully understood God's love for me until I had children. Like when you see your child for the first time and you're seeing yourself, you're like, man, if I have this much love for my child, how much love does God have for me, right? And so that direct correlation, nothing quite helps you get a grasp on that more than having your own children. And also, nothing really motivates you and gets you off of your own self. You know, when you're single or when you're newly married, you know, it's just you and your spouse. When you have kids, man, it ain't about you no more. You take all the focus off of yourself, and it's about them. So when I see my sons, it's like I see myself, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm like, these good traits, keep them. These bad traits, don't do what I've done. And it's like anyone else. You know, we learn from our own experience or we learn from the experience of others. But just like every generation, for some reason, we want to figure things out our own way. And no matter how many times I tell my son, hey, don't do this, do this. You know, sometimes they listen to me. Sometimes they don't. And they just want to figure things out their own way. You know, what is it? The age-old adage, don't touch the stove. You're going to get burned. They do it anyway. And so I think for me, being a father, I feel like being a parent is the highest level of leadership. And it's the most exposed because your kids are right there with you. And I can be one person on the stage and I can be one person in business, but my kids see me when I'm home. And I got to be the same person out in the world as I am at home. And if not, they'll call me on it. So they see who a person really is. I think it's really important to strive and to aim that the people who know you the best respect you and love you the most.
Yeah. You know, when you said, the very first thing you said, when you talked about looking at your child when they're first born, I remember distinctly when both of my kids were born, like the feeling I had of just like, oh my God. Right. But then what you said was how when we don't truly understand God's love for us until we understand our love for our children. I was like, wow, that's a pretty powerful thought to just, you know, sit and marinate on for a minute. So that was pretty powerful for me to hear that right away. But you're right. You know, our children see us at our strongest, at our weakest, at our, you know, at all moments, you know, and I'm here to tell you that my kids have definitely called me out on the times where, you know, I'm not being the same person that I might be in my martial arts school, or I might be out in the public in our community. And, you know, when you're home with your family, I mean, that's your true, authentic, totally vulnerable self. And, you know, that's what they're picking up on. They're not picking up on dad who's on stage or dad that's, you know, teaching a class, although that's a part of it. But, you know, when we got that time at home, yeah, that's super powerful. Tell me about your childhood, your parents, and how they impacted your life.
Had great parents, Jason. I mean, just best I could ever ask for. My dad was raised in Mississippi. My mom was raised in Illinois, and they met at Bible college in Houston. And so my dad's journey, you know, he actually wanted to, this is really cool what I'm about to tell you. He wanted to be a minister and a speaker and an evangelist, preacher. He wanted to travel and make a living doing that. But in the late 70s and early 80s, it didn't quite work out for him. So there was a leader, a mentor at his church who said, hey, I own a vacuum cleaner business. Would you like to come work for me? Well, I get my personality from my dad. My dad's a people person. He loves people. He's great with them. And so he developed a skill of that. Long story short, he owned his own business. He was successful. And it made it to where my mom could stay at home with me as a child. And so growing up, you know, we loved activities and fun stuff and going out to eat all the time. But church was like a really big part of our faith-based community, was a huge part of my upbringing. And so my dad really helped me and my mom in those areas of my life. I remember, you know, it being so real for me. I got baptized at like 7 years old. I decided that I wanted to live for God at an early age, you know, and dad really helped me with that. But it really captured me and it just inspired me at such a young age that even though my father was not able to do that for a living, as far as being a minister, I'm able to do that today for a living. So yeah. I'm able to carry his legacy And I think it's true going back to our children. We want our kids to do better than we've done in every way, financially, spiritually, relationally, physically, emotionally, mentally, every way. And so, so we had a great upbringing. Now, my dad, he passed away when I was 20. So I was 3 years out of high school. The first year out of high school, I went to junior college. And then the second year out of high school, I worked for my dad. The third year, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I said, let me go to Bible college. Let me do what you did when you were my age. And 6 months into Bible college / internship, my dad passes away from a blood clot. He had a blood clot. I was living an hour and a half away from where my parents lived at the time. And I came back home to take over my dad's business that he owned, and then to be with my mom and my sister. And that was a huge change of events, a huge shift in my life. At 20, my sister was 12. But let me say this to all the listeners, and I really do mean this. Even though I'm 43 now, I was 20 when he passed, so I've lived longer without him than with him. But Jason, and I really do mean this, what he left inside of me was greater than what he left to me.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. I mean, that's the impact that a father has on you, no matter how much time has passed. How did it really affect you though, when he did pass? I mean, did you go through challenges of just dealing with that?
Yeah. So we all know that we can't be a victim our whole life. And grieving has a season, and we can't live in the past. We know that, but I still believe it's affected me to this day. It happens so fast. So I go from I have a direction in my life. I'm in Bible school. I'm an intern. I'm working towards ministry. So now that gets put on hold. And now I come over and stop that entirely. I'm still going to church on the weekends, but I'm taking over my dad's business. So now I'm the youngest person among 5 other employees, $500,000 business, a year. And I'm the youngest and least experienced, but now because of my name and just default, I'm taking over the business. My mom stayed at home. She was going through her things. My sister was 12. So I shift what I'm doing. I took over the business. Now I'm the man of the house, so to speak. And I'm not really sure I had proper time to grieve at the beginning, but it's been 23 years and I've had time to do that now. In fact, that's a big part of my motivation as well, not just my children, but also, saying, okay, where my dad stopped, I can pick up and I can carry the torch for our family name, for our family tree. And my kids never had a chance to meet him, but they can know him through me. Mm-hmm. Right.
Right.
The legacy he left, the values, the attributes, the work ethic, the vision, the ambition. So, I hope that I answered your question through that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And was there a lot of pressure because you had to step in that role of, being the youngest and being the least experienced, but, the legacy and the name from your father, was there some pressure there to step into that role?
I think just by default, there was pressure. I mean, it was necessity. I didn't really have a choice. Right. And it happened so fast. When you're in that place, you're in survival mode. You're just taking it one day at a time. And you're like, okay, now what? Now I'm just living my life. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely felt pressure, but let me say this. God really does know the end from the beginning. Why do I say that? Because he knew that years down the road, I would be in leadership positions. He also knew that I would be leading hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. So going through the pressure and the ups and the downs of taking over my dad's family business and being there for my mom and my sister, and still just trying to be a young man, right? Still trying to what the heck, figure it out. Mm-hmm. All of that would mold me and shape me for 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road when I would deal with all kind of personalities and all different kind of temperaments, and all different kind of opinions, I could look back to when I was 20 and say, oh, I dealt with men who were my father's age, who knew more than me and tried to get me to do certain things. And I had to navigate through all of that. And just to feel that like certain things were taken from me, to realize that when I would deal with people in the future, when they go through things, I can say, let me tell you about a situation 20 years ago. Let me tell you about what I went through 10 years ago. I didn't know that what I was going through then would be a blessing and give hope to someone today.
Right.
But God knew that. Right?
Yes.
And so we have to, it sounds cliche, but we have to count it all joy because we never know. I tell people this, and I really want our listeners to really grasp this. Your trial, your storm that you're going through is actually a gift. We don't always see it that way.
Right.
We're like, why, God?
Yeah.
What the heck is going on right now? Like, why me? Right. And so we look inward, but the trial and the storm is a gift because we can turn that into a testimony. And if the whole purpose of our life is to be a blessing for other people, like if significance in life is about others, how can we help others unless we've come out the other side of something challenging?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love it. I love it. Well, let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about Jared as a child and some of the trials and some of the challenges that you had as a child that you overcome and carried into your adult life.
Yeah, I mean, my childhood was really good. Some would argue that I was a little bit sheltered. I don't know. When you're in an environment and to someone on the outside would say, oh, you're sheltered or this or that, you don't really know that when you're in it. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest thing, I think the biggest trial was when Dad passed as a young man. Walking through that season, the listeners know that I'm huge into music, right? Like singer-songwriter, music is such a huge part of my life. So growing up before Dad passed, if I had a challenge or an obstacle or anything, it might sound funny to some listeners, but so like I never dabbled into drugs. It doesn't make me better than anybody else. There's just decisions that I made. I never dabbled into anything like that. Never dabbled into like premarital sex and like all these checklist things that people would say. But for me, music though, man. And look, all of us can agree. Music is a powerful weapon.
Oh yeah.
I don't care how you slice it, Jack. Like music is a powerful universal language. It affects how we feel. It affects our mood. Like it can get us up. I mean, you listen to a song long enough, you can get depressed. You listen to a song long enough, you can be ready to conquer the world. And so for me, because music was a calling on my life from a young age, what I listened to mattered, and it matters. So everyone has their own walk. Everyone has their own path. So this isn't like any judgment for anyone else. This is just for me and my story. For me, like I was really digging into like some really hard rock, which I love hard rock. I love metal. I love all styles. But there was like certain stuff that I was listening to that was really crossing the line, and it was affecting my attitude. It was affecting not just like teenage rebellious years, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It was really affecting just like my spirit, what I was listening to. And so for me, I had to make a decision of like, I remember one time, Jason, back in the day, we had this thing called CDs and tapes.
Right. Nobody remembers 8 tracks.
Yeah. And so I remember, praying to God, and I was like, I know this sounds entirely asinine, but I remember like crying because I couldn't stop listening to certain artists who I knew unequivocally were influencing me in a negative way. Mm-hmm. It was just for me, maybe not for anybody else, but for me it was. I remember crying and breaking the CDs and saying, God, if you want me to like listen to nothing but like faith-based inspired music for a season or whatever, I'll do it if that's going to bring me closer to you. If that's going to get me closer to where you want me to be, then I'll do it. And Jason, it's like everything changed, man. I don't even know how to explain it. Like we had this Christian radio station that was like where I live, and I couldn't stand listening to it because I thought all the music was cheeseball and like I just didn't like it. And then I broke the CDs, and like it wasn't just a physical breaking like of the actual CD, like something like broke in me as far as just like negative attitude and like mindset. And I remember liking things that before I couldn't stand. And we could relate it to even like if you love sugar and then you break sugar. There's people who haven't had sugar for years, and if they do, they're like, "Oh, I can't stand it." Or let's say that you fast from Coke for like a year, and then you go back and drink Coke, and you can't stand the taste because the desire for certain things that influence us negatively, once they're out of our system, and then we go back to it, we don't want it anymore.
Right. Yeah. So you're talking about this story about listening to music and certain music that affected you negatively, and you stopped listening. So I grew up listening to hard rock, metal, just crazy speed metal, crazy stuff. And I can remember a time, and I don't remember exactly, but I remember that there was a distinct decision that I said to myself, like, what am I listening to? Like, I started listening to the words more. I'm like, what am I listening to? And I'm like, I'd be banging my head and like enjoying it. Right. And one song in particular that I can almost never, ever listen to. And I absolutely love Motley Crue. Motley Crue is probably one of my favorite bands of all time. But like, as soon as Shout at the Devil comes on, it's like, it has a weird vibe for me now. It just like something shifted in me that says like, why are you listening to that? Like listen to those words. Like, really? And it just, I don't know. So when you were saying all that, I was just like, yeah, I had this moment, and I hated country music. I never listened to country music ever, ever, ever. And now it's like all I listen to. So it's like, I get it because, and I'll tell you that when I listen to a lot of the country songs, like I'm relating to the words in the song that are telling me things about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I might be going through in my life. And it's like, you can really just latch onto that. So I 100% agree, because I go to the gym. I cannot get the best workout in my mind. I don't get the best workout unless I'm listening to like some really good music that's inspiring me and pumping me up. So music 100% affects the way we think, the way we feel, the way we perform and get ready to perform. So I love it. And so you've been a singer, songwriter, involved in music, like literally your whole life.
Yeah, man. I mean, geez, when you grow up in church, and most people understand this, music is like a big part of that.
Yeah.
It's like the duration of time that you're gathered together, that's like a big part of it. And so you can't help but have it in your blood. It's just like, it's like in me. Right. And so my particular church, it was very lively is an understatement. And like, it was kind of like gospel and like contemporary. And like, sometimes we'd be like shouting and clapping our hands. Sometimes we'd be crying and like just being very somber and still. And there was like this array of emotions. And then you combine that with like, you're feeling that emotional tug, but it's like the presence of God, right? So it's like heaven on earth. And so it grabbed me at such a young age. And so I had the opportunity to sing in front of like 5,000 people at 8 years old at a conference. I started my first band when I was like 14. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I just like, this sounds so funny. I was listening to, I was 14, like 94. So I'm dating myself. I was really into like the Green Day record. Dookie.
A lot of people were, right? Oh yeah.
Yeah. The Green Day record. And like, do you have the time? Right. And I remember like, I had that song so stuck in my head that the first song I ever wrote, like, was mimicking that melody, but like different words. I was like, no, Jared, you got to be original. You got to write your own song. And so it kind of started the process. But man, played in bands like all throughout from like 14 to like 28. And like, that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a traveling musician and like live in a tour bus or a van and like travel and be in a rock band. But as my like late 20s, God shifted that. And like, oh, Jared, you're still going to do music. You're so like your passion for like connecting with an audience and being on the stage and like rocking out and like going for it. You're still going to do that. You're just going to like focus that into like a worship gathering, which is what I'm doing like to this day. You're like, Jared, like, you're so energetic and you're so passionate. And it's like, some people who don't, they're like, oh, he's an entertainer. I'm like, if I'm entertaining anyone, I'm entertaining God. Like, I'm not trying to entertain you. Like, I'm going to connect with you. But like, when you see me like going at it, this isn't me trying to like entertain you. This is like really who I am. And it's been with me that way my whole entire life. Like, music makes me come alive in so many levels. But wouldn't you agree? Like, if it's a conversation, if it's music, whatever it is, people can feel if it's genuine. They can feel if it's authentic.
Yep.
They can feel if you're trying to be someone that you're not. So my upbringing really helped with the authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
awesome. I think that's so cool. You know, I just, when did you start speaking or preaching? When did you, what was the moment? Because, and what was that moment like the first time, you know, because I know my first time speaking ever in front of an audience, I was like petrified. Like I wanted to say all the right words. I wanted to say all the right things. I wanted to connect in a way that everybody felt like they were involved. And it was just like, I don't know, my nerves just really got to me. So, I mean, what about for you?
Yeah, no, you are 100% correct. There were actually moments where like I would throw up beforehand. Yeah, like it sounds gross. Sorry, TMI. But so, okay. So I think a couple of things. If I'm leading worship or if I'm speaking, they're both forms of communication to an audience. But I was leading and singing a lot more than I was speaking. And so I didn't really start speaking until probably like my teenage years, late teens, early 20s. And in our youth group at church, we'd have like 40 kids in our youth group. Dude, we had no sound system, no speakers, no microphone. It's just like $100 guitar. I didn't know what I was doing, and I would sing. And so what would happen is our youth pastors, for those who are familiar with that term, they were volunteers. So our youth pastor would work at a refinery, and his wife would be like, oh, Jared, my husband couldn't come tonight. Can you speak? And it's like five minutes before we start. I'm like, yeah. And so like I would go in my car, open my Bible, find a scripture and think about a story and like come up with like 2 bullet points.
Wow.
Jason, I would stutter so bad. I would get excited and talk fast and, you know, get my energy up. And I didn't know how to like to pace myself. And I would start stuttering and it was so bad. I mean, just bad. And it wasn't until I was about 30 years old that I started really consistently reading. You couldn't pay me to read until I was about 30. I hated it. I couldn't focus. I didn't like it. But when I started reading, I realized if I don't read, I'm never going to grow. I'm never going to have anything to say. I'll never make more money. And so it was a motivating factor for me. And so as I started reading consistently, I poured a lot into myself, a ton of John Maxwell to this day, ton of the Bible, a ton of mostly nonfiction leadership, personal development books. And I would literally preach to the choir every week because we had choir practice at my church. And so I would give them like a 5-minute encouragement. Even if they didn't even want me to, I would do it. And what they would say is, like, Pastor Jared, wow, I really got something out of that. Are you a preacher? I was like, maybe I am. I don't know. And so anyway, then like during the worship set at church, I would just do like a quick 20-second encouragement, quick 20-second exhortation. Well, the pastor picked up on it. He was like, Jared, I think you're a speaker. I was 36 years old, Jason, and of all places, I was in Los Angeles, California. I had flown to Los Angeles for a vocal lesson from like a high-end vocal coach. My pastor didn't know that I was in LA on a Monday morning. And he's like, hey, Jared, can you preach Wednesday night? And I'm thinking, you mean like in 48 hours? He's like, yes. I knew, Jason, that if I said no, he would never ask me again. I just felt something like, man, if I let fear take over and start overthinking this thing, I might not get another opportunity. So I said yes. Was I nervous? Absolutely. Did I have butterflies? Absolutely. But the key was preparation. Man, I had 48 hours and I prepared. But here's the biggest takeaway. It was like at 36, it was that 6 years of studying and preparing like daily that helped me, like, okay, God, what do you want me to talk about? And then I just recalled what I had prepared for, not knowing that 6 years after I started, I would give a speech. And I started writing things down. Boom, 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 boom. Quotes, stories, bullet points, a clear train of thought, what I thought would really inspire and help people. And that's really where it took off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How how often is it that people are faced with this question, of here's an opportunity, and how many times do people say no because of that fear and because of all of the things that you talked about, but being, having the courage, having the feeling, having the faith to be able to say yes, how much that changed your life really just in that one question, that one opportunity, right?
Every next level of your life is you willing to say yes. So there's a scripture that says that God takes us from glory to glory to glory. And a really practical way of translating that is that when you feel that God's asking you to do something, or your boss or whoever for that matter, like if it's someone who's asking you to do something that if you say yes to, will challenge you, stretch you, grow you, take you to the next level, your life in personal growth is yes to yes to yes to yes to yes. And so everything we want is on the other side of fear. And so, man, and listen, it's not like I've always been this way. I have some embarrassing stories. When I was taking piano lessons and vocal lessons in college, we had this thing called master class. Not where you listen, watch a screen and watch someone teach you. This is where like you would go in front of an audience, in front of like 30 people, and you would sing or play and they would judge you. And I remember being so petrified that I would hide it sounds so embarrassing. I can't believe I'm saying this. I would hide in the bathroom on the day that it was my turn to perform. I was petrified. This is going to sound crazy. Even hearing myself sing as the lead singer of a band, there was one moment this is whenever we would record and watch it on VHS. Right? VHS. Right? And our band would kind of like a football team does like they watch replay. Okay. We would watch ourselves perform. I would hide in the bathroom and put toilet paper in my ears because I couldn't stand the sound of my own voice. And so it's saying yes to moments that you're fearful, but it's also consistency. Jason, like a running joke for ministers is we quit every Monday morning. Like if Sunday's our big day, we quit every Monday morning. And then we say yes again on Friday and Saturday and show up on Sunday. So the key is not just knowing what you're called to do, not just knowing where your sweet spot or what you're really good at or how you add the most value, but it's perseverance, right? It's like not giving up. All of us know it, but not everyone applies it. I've been leading worship for 28 years. So there was like a comfort zone in leading worship. I didn't have the same quiet comfort zone with speaking. But as I've gotten older, as I've continued to do podcasts, as I've continued to be consistent and not give up and not stop, now I'm not where I want to be. I'm not as polished as I want to be. But with these podcasts, I'm not thinking like, oh, crap, what am I going to say next? It's just a river. It flows out of me now. Consistent study, consistent conversation. I'm constantly putting into myself so that I can constantly pour out. And that's where the confidence comes. It comes from the preparation. It comes from filling myself up for the purpose of pouring out into others. If I'm just filling myself up for myself, then that's a selfish life. That's a lonely life. But if I'm filling myself up for the purpose of pouring into other people, that's satisfying. That's legacy. That's really living your life for a higher purpose. And so if it's leading worship or singing a song or speaking in front of an audience, I would just say, man, you got to be consistent. You got to have a message that resonates. And I think you'll be able to concur with this. Man, I can't speak something that I'm not feeling.
Right.
If it's not in me, man, people can read through that 2.5 seconds. If it's not coming out of me, man, I don't want to say it because it'll be inauthentic.
Right. No, I mean, as you're saying all of this, I'm like, well, I mean, in martial arts, this is all what we preach and what we talk about every single day. Our word of the month is perseverance, right? So as you're talking about perseverance, I'm like, yeah, we're talking about all this with our kids, with our young kids, 3-year-olds all the way up. So what you said about, pouring into yourself to pour into other people, um, as a good leader, that's what we should be doing, because I take in new information. I talk with someone who's amazing today, and I can help share your message, this message, and these lessons now with my children, my team, my staff, people in my community. And what a huge ripple effect that has when we do that, right? When we not only gain that new knowledge, gain those new experiences, saying yes, and then sharing with other people. I mean, that's in martial arts. I mean, that's what we want. We want to learn as much as we can to share with our students so that they could be as safe and as strong as they possibly can be in our world, in that situation, right?
Yep.
So awesome. I mean, great stuff so far. Jose's still watching, loving it. So thank you, Jose.
Thanks.
And we're kind of leading into talking about your book, right? So let's talk about writing your book. That was another opportunity for you to say yes, right? Because I'm still on that bubble of saying yes, of writing a book, right? But you've done it, and tell me about the experience.
Okay. For every person alive, this is so huge because there's a double-edged sword. There's two sides of the coin of what you can do and what you should do. Let me explain. Okay. So as a singer-songwriter and then a speaker, if you're inspired to do something and someone tells you, well, why would you ever want to do that? You would never be good at that. If you trust that and you don't do it, man, you've just put a cap on yourself, and you've actually robbed someone else of a blessing by not fulfilling what you were inspired to do. But on the other side of the coin is so many people do things that they're inspired to do, but they're not equipped to do, or they're not called to do, or they're not competent to do. Like, so many people want to be a singer, but like when they sing, everyone closes their ears. So the whole point is that I had to be careful who I listened to. And if I would have listened to people who said, oh, Jared's the music guy. Jared's the music guy. I could have said, oh yeah, I'm the music guy. I would have never read books to help me become a better speaker. I would have never desired to be an author. I would have never desired to start an online community. Are you following me? So it's so important who we listen to. And so people are like, put Jared in a box. And that's cool that you did that, as long as I don't do that. You can put me in a box, but as long as I don't put me in a box, then like I'm good. Again, you can't just aspire to do things that you're not gifted to do. So I had to like test it out. And so I asked mentors, I said, I had this idea that I felt like God gave me like 3.5, 4 years ago. And the idea was that the influential voices that we trust really do determine the direction of our life. The people who we listen to and we look up to and we trust their influence, if we listen to what they have to say and like adhere to that, that might change the direction of our life if we follow suit with what they said. And so I was talking to Eric G. Reed, which Eric G. Reed, I met him through Dennis LaRue, right? And I met Dennis LaRue through reaching out on Facebook for a coach, to someone to help me organize my life. So anyway, I met with Eric G. Reed and I told him my concept. And he's like, Jared, I really think you're onto something. But what you're really trying to talk about here is not just influence, but truth. And Jason, my mind started racing, man. I'm like, holy crap, what is going on here? And so we really narrowed it down to this. it's still congruent with the original inspirational thought, but it really expanded into the people that we trust the most influence us the most. And that influence shapes our reality of truth. So it's like, man, whether it's like your brand or your representation or whatever, it's like, it's not just for me that God is the truth. It's I had to trust my father to believe that God was the truth. Like if my father's telling me that God is the truth, I had to trust that through watching his life. And so his influence in my life opened the door of influence for me to give God a try for myself. I couldn't just trust his truth as the truth. Why? Because borrowed beliefs have no power. Don't miss that. Borrowed beliefs have no power. I couldn't acknowledge God as the truth because he's daddy's truth. I had to acknowledge God as the truth because it became Jared's truth. And so again, it really matters who we listen to, who our closest relationships are, because they have the greatest influence on us, and that influence determines our reality of truth. And that's how the book was given birth.
Wow. And so the process of writing the book, how long did it take you to write your book?
Well, I had the idea for 3.5 years, and then I finally got started. Once I really got started, it took me about 8 months to finish it.
Okay. Any major challenges along the way, or did it just kind of flow right out?
Yeah. And I'm not even being sarcastic. I'm being truthful, even though it sounds like I'm being facetious. Any challenges? Yeah, I had to think. I mean, thinking is hard work sometimes, you know? Hey, especially with AI now, right? By the way, I didn't use AI for my book, just so everybody knows. Like, I had to really think, and having a mentor in Eric G. Reed as my publisher, like, man, he didn't put up with my crap. He's like, Jared, he wasn't mean, but he told me some solid, hard truths. I mean, he's like, Jared, like, don't just give me a scripture. Like, give me the lesson behind the scripture. Like, he actually told me, he's like, don't hide behind the scripture. And I could have got butthurt, right? I could have been in my feelings and be like, well, what do you mean? It's like, no, like, swallow that pill, take it, learn from it. And like, okay, I'm being challenged. If I'm going to make a statement of what truth is and how to find truth for yourself and what truth looks like and the language of truth and understanding truth, man, this is like a big undertaking. I better like really think this thing through, or I'm going to fall flat on my face. And so one of the biggest challenges was just really like stopping and pausing and reflecting and thinking outside of myself and researching and just reflecting on, okay, what is the heartbeat of this book? What am I really trying to say? You know how it is, like you understand what you're saying in your own mind, but will the reader understand it? Mm-hmm. Will the person you're talking to, can they understand it in simple terms? And not only can they understand it, but like, can they get it? You know? And so that was probably some of the biggest challenges.
Yeah. And now, did you write another book since then? So
I'm writing as we speak. I have a book that I wrote before that. And it was basically, I had a record, a 6-song record called Chasing Me Down. And each song it wasn't a story like how the song was written. Each chapter is a song, and it's the message of the song. So that was before Truth, but I definitely have several ideas that I'm writing on, and a major idea that I felt inspired to write on was on identity. Right. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm assuming that everybody can go and find your book on Amazon. Yes.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Cool. So go check it out, guys. And as we start to, wrap things up, thanks again to Jose Escobar for watching today. If anybody else is watching live and you have any questions for Jared or just any comments to throw in here, let us know. Would love to hear from you guys out there. But let's talk about this new, shall I call it a program initiative that you're working on, Servant Leadership Creative?
Yeah. So it's an online community we just launched on Monday. Super excited about it. This is kind of like the heartbeat behind it. I'm a huge proponent huge advocate that everyone should be pouring their life into someone else, but that person who's pouring their life into someone else has to have someone pouring into them. And Jason, I see it time and time again that it's so lopsided. Either someone's pouring into someone else, but that person's not pouring into someone else, or someone's pouring into someone and someone's not pouring into them. And I see it all the time. And the only way that we can be sustainable in collaborating and connecting and blessing people and sharing our life with people is that it has to be a cycle. It has to be a continual river, not just a reservoir. If not, we'll end up being like a Dead Sea. And so if we're pouring into someone, but someone's not pouring into us, at some point, we're going to tap out. At some point, we're going to get rusty. At some point, our well's going to run dry. And you and I both know as grown men, yes, as adults, man, we feed ourselves. We go make our own money. We know how to create. We know how to take care of ourselves. But are we supposed to take care of ourselves? Or do we really need the human element of someone mentoring us as we mentor someone else? To me, it's someone who I'm reaching up for and someone who's reaching up for me. And so what happens is it gets like this, but whenever we all win, it gets like this. Mm-hmm. And so we're all in this thing together. Each one reach one. And so I saw a huge need in ministry where people are doing the work for God, but not the work of God. They traded activity for intimacy. Or they traded intimacy for activity, rather. So, like, they're doing a lot of good things, but like, as John Maxwell says, activity doesn't always equal accomplishment. And so it's like, we're doing a lot of good things, but how is our soul? Like, how's your soul? Like, you seem productive on the outside. I mean, you're killing it, you're crushing it, but man, you're empty on the inside. Like you have an appearance of success, but on the inside, you're not being filled up. You're giving yourself to everyone else, but who's giving to you? And that's the heartbeat behind Servant Leadership Creative. We are pouring into people who are on the stage, off the stage, and behind the scene of church ministry. And we're giving a customized, personalized touch and approach to servant leaders. And I'm really ecstatic about it. I'm really excited because I know the difference that it's going to make in people's hearts.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, I've been watching as you've been talking about it online, and as we had our conversation just recently, that you were gearing up for this, and then I saw the launch, and I'm excited for you. I think it's going to be great. We have so many. Maybe this is just where I am in my life now, but we have so many opportunities for what you're creating now. We have Jose who's created the CLA. We have this Maxwell leadership team and just all of these. And so what do you say to people on how to choose the right group? How do I know how many groups I should be in? Because, once you get involved in these groups, right, it's like everybody's got a group and everybody wants you to be in the group. And how do you pace yourself, I guess, is my question.
That's the key word right there, is pace. So, you have all different kind of personalities. You have people who don't want to disappoint people. Mm-hmm. And so they overcommit. And then you have people who just like don't care at all. Yeah. Then you have people like who don't care at all. And they're like, forget you no matter what. And so I think pace is super important. I think you have to know, like, I had to ask myself, Jared, what are you most passionate about? Where do you add the most value? And so some people get caught in this ocean of, well, I just want to reach everybody. I just want to help everybody. But like, if everything is important, then nothing is important.
Right.
It's the law of priorities, right? You don't manage time, you manage priorities. And so you have to ask yourself, okay, well, yeah, I want to reach the world, but like specifically, like in my niche, it doesn't mean that like I'm just limited to, but it means where do I have the most impact? Where do my laser focus? And that is church leadership. It's not that I'm not involved in leadership in the business world, but like, man, when I really go for it, like that's like a big niche for me. or niche, however you want to say it. And, and so I say, okay, so man, I feel like the heart of God is humility. And like, I'm not where I want to be, but like, I'm striving to be a servant. Man, I feel like servant leadership is the greatest leadership because, man, you're serving people. That's what it's really all about. And I'm a creative, man. I'm an artist. I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter. I'm an author. Like, I'm a creative. So like, I want to like help people in that area of their life. And at the same time, I say that, you know, we're all creative because we all have breath in our lungs. And we all should strive to be servant leaders because we all should strive to people are going to gravitate to humility and servanthood. And so that's the reason we're like, I said, man, this is really where I want to go. So yeah, that's kind of what helped me find my niche when it came to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I love it. I love it. Again, you know, it's you brought up the point of, you know, some people try to do everything and overcommit, and I've just found myself in that situation so many times where, oh wow, this is awesome. I want to be part of this. Oh, that's awesome. And then before you know it, you're so spread out that the focus of what you really set out to do, you know, and for me, my immediate community, my martial arts school, what I do here, everything that I do and everything that I learn and everything that how I try to grow is to really make the biggest impact here, you know, but that doesn't mean that I don't love to be part of, you know, all of the other groups that I'm part of, but it's hard to spread the time so wide, you know, and lose the focus of your initial point of setting forward on that.
Yeah. Here's the good news, Jason. We have 8 billion people on the planet.
Right.
So like there really is enough people to find community. I think, like you said, for you and I, and for all of us, man, like you have to know everyone has a different capacity level. If you spread yourself too thin, you're not going to be good for anybody. But if you continue to grow, continue to get more organized, continue to have a morning, evening routine, continue to have a team around you, I believe you can be a part of multiple communities.
Mm-hmm.
But every person has to figure that out for themselves, what they can and cannot handle. But what we cannot do is stay stagnant and stay where we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Nope, totally agree with that. And Jose actually just said, you know, exactly that. He says, I believe we should all be in 3 to 5 communities and of course have one of our own. And yeah, I think that's exactly what you're doing. I know that's what Jose is doing, and that is what I am working towards myself. So listen, Jared, this was an awesome conversation and it was great getting to know you even more on a deeper level. And, you know, enjoyed our last conversation. I look forward to many more conversations with you as well. Just want to thank you for being on the show and thank everybody for watching. Again, especially Jose. He's been here the whole time, commenting all the way through and supporting us. I really appreciate that. And guys, if you're watching live or you're watching this on a replay, please go to YouTube and subscribe to the Master Motivation Podcast. Check out some of the other interviews that are up there and some of the upcoming interviews for months and months to come. So, Jared, any closing thoughts before we go?
Just my favorite quote. Mother Teresa said, "You can do things that I cannot do. I can do things that you cannot do. But together, we can do great things."
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And thanks for sharing your entire story today. Really appreciate you being on and just want to wish everybody an amazing weekend. And we'll see you on the next episode of Master Motivation Podcast. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.